All right. Let's see. Is it started?
Yep. And we're live.
Awesome. Yay!
Yay.
Welcome, everybody. It's been a little bit since we've done a Zoom session, so we're excited to be back. The day we're posting it, it's just about a week after Valentine's Day. So we're at the end of February. And yeah, we're excited to talk about what we should be thinking about right now. How was your Valentine's Day in your classroom, Michaela?
I wasn't there. I
Nice.
was down in Arizona at best practices, so we had a couple of substitutes in our classroom, but seems like it went well. Valentines were handed out and kids were happy, so
Perfect.
sounds like a win.
I'm glad you got to go to best practices.
Yeah, it was super neat. How was your Valentine's?
It was good. Yeah, Valentines were handed out. We delivered over 300 Valentines to the nearest retirement facility that the fourth graders
Cool.
have been working on for a while. And we got to sing to the residents, and it was
Oh,
really special. And of course, they got their treats, and we played games, and it was a really just fun time.
yeah, they
Love and talk
always love
about
it.
Jesus loving you. And
Yep.
yeah, so it was so much fun. And I like having that in February because it's kind of a lull time for a lot of people. Because for a lot of people, it's winter and it's cold and there's not much exciting happening,
Get
especially
stuck with
if
indoor
you're being
recesses.
late. Yes, yes. So that was fun to look forward to. And now we're looking forward to spring break, which is in about a month,
Yep,
which is awesome. Yeah. So
definitely.
this week, or today, we want to talk about classroom funds. I know for my school, we already started just this week a wants and needs list looking ahead for next year. So if you guys, as new teachers, want to ask about that, that would be really good to start a list of things that you wish you had this year or that you know that you had and you need them again, you need the school to provide them, or you need to put them on the school supply list for next year. Now's the time to do that and at least start your list. It doesn't have to be finalized yet, but start thinking about it because the sooner you start, the more accurate it's going to be because you're going to have time to think about it all. And my school is very generous and gives us a set amount of money that we can spend on our classroom. So if you haven't spent it yet, um, it's a great time to think about, again, what you think that you might want. Maybe there are some more manipulatives for the classroom that you'd like to use for math or for science projects or for teaching literacy. Maybe extra money that you want to use for classroom parties like your Easter party or end of year celebration, or even classroom gifts for Easter gifts or end of the year student gifts. Start thinking about how you're going to budget for those things if those are things that you want to spend that money on.
And I know I'm guilty of like, I know there's a set amount of money for me, but that requires me to remember a receipt and then, filling out the form to get my money back. So if in the first part of this year you haven't been doing that, sometimes I find it easier that if there's things I've realized I wish I had or oh, it'd be nice for next year, then sometimes I just ask the office if they'll order it on Amazon. And then I still get to use my funds. I didn't waste that free money, but I also didn't have to do all of the work of making sure I was tracking the $5 here and the $10 here and turning in all my receipts. So it's kind of another way to do it, which I've kind of fallen into the habit of because it's just easier for me than trying to go through the store and make sure I have the right things where and not making it too confusing for them and not making extra steps for myself, but not wasting that money that schools are generously giving you so that you have more supplies.
Yeah, and they've budgeted for it, so you
Mhm.
might as well use it
Yeah,
because you want them to keep budgeting for it in future years.
yeah. And like I know for mine, if I don't use it, it's not like it rolls over.
Mine doesn't either.
So you don't want to waste it. That's the big thing here. If they're offering it to you, it's because they want to support you, and it's one of their ways that they're showing that. So kind of being thankful to use that money and being able to use it for what you need instead of just kind of ignoring it.
Hmm. And if you're like me, where you spent it all in the first 2 months of school planning ahead for the rest of the school year, then that's okay too. If other things come up, you can still ask. Or I've had parents ask me, like, is there anything you want for your classroom? And sometimes I'll say, like, you don't have to get it for me, but this has been a dream of mine to have. But again, you don't have to get it. And then oftentimes I'll get it for
Hmm.
my birthday or for, randomly.
And that's a huge thing too. If parents comment that they're willing to get you supplies or things that you need or things that you want, take advantage of that. They wouldn't say it if they didn't really feel it, is kind
Mhm.
of the pattern you notice as you keep going. They're not offering to get you something if that's not what they really want to do. But it's still nice to phrase it as, I don't need you to get me this, but I would be nice. But those parents definitely have intentions and they're happy and they enjoy that their child has you, and it's a way that they're looking to support you in another way.
Mhm. And there are some things that your school would like to provide for you that they don't necessarily or might not want you telling parents that you need because they still want to look like a supportive school, right? And they are. Many of our Lutheran school offices do support Lutheran educators.
Mm-hmm.
So things like Post-its. If you know that your school will provide you Post-its, then don't ask of a parent,
Right.
um, unless there's a specific type that you want.
Hmm.
But then I
And
would
typically the parents like to do kind of like the fun things. Like,
exactly.
oh, this manipulative or this magnetic thing or cutesy things for your classroom. They like to do a lot of that stuff.
Yes,
Things they think their kid and future kids will enjoy and be able to use. Not
exactly.
one and done.
And then now it's also time to organize those things.
Woo!
Yes. So I like to start my spring cleaning now because spring in the school year is very, very hectic. Especially if you're going to move classrooms or you have to get ready for summer school. And spring in the new year or in the last quarter is just crazy anyway. So start organizing all those materials now. Especially as a first year teacher, you might have come into a certain organizing method. And if that works for you, use it. If it doesn't work for you, find a different method that will work for you so that the method works for you for years to come. You want to be able to start next year feeling organized now that been able to take the time to go through all of this stuff. This applies to lessons as well. If you have had like a dump bin for lessons or extra work, um, go ahead and start organizing that now, whether it's folders or binders that you use, or if everything's digital, digitally organize it in your drive or whatever other folders that you use, because if you get into the habit of organizing now, the rest of the year is going to be better. And next year is going to be better, whether that's your second, third, or 30th year.
Hmm. And it might take a few different tries of finding what works for you. I know what I started with was a lot of kind of file folders and just maybe tracking the papers, where I've realized actually I really like having the different manipulatives or the different laminated things that I have all in the same spot as well. And so now I've kind of switched over to bins. So it kind of just depends, and it sometimes takes a while or a few different things to try and finding even like the right bin. Like I had tried some bins before, but then I was like, well, I don't like it. It's kind of curving my papers, and now it's they're like not all flat, and that was bothering me. So then I wasn't really using it. Where now I have kind of those wider square ones that everything can fit nicely, and so it just seems to work better. But it took a while to get there. So um, take your time, try a few different things. Once you find the one that fits, then it's not like you have to switch it all over at once. I've kind of been slowly doing that this year now that I know it's what I like. And so science, each chapter kind of gets one, and then I'm doing the same thing with math and just slowly transitioning those things, not one big summer project that I went and changed everything.
Yes, yes, you do not have to plan to be here or be at school in the
Yeah,
summer
don't do that.
for the whole thing. Yeah, the more you can do now, the more of a rest you'll be able to
Your
take
summer can be.
then. Exactly.
Exactly.
When you're thinking about organizing, also think about things that your substitute would want to be able to see right away when they enter a room. Because as Michaela and I were talking before this, it is flu season around here. So you never know when you're going to be out. And if you happen to be out and don't get a chance to come to school and prepare everything there, you're gonna want the substitute to be able to know, okay, the I see the sub plans. So at my school, we have a sub folder for it, and we have an emergency response manual as well. And they're clearly labeled. Whether I'm there or not, it's always in the same place. So my coworkers know where it is and they can pull it out and put it on the desk, even though it kind of is already on the desk, like standing up, but they can put it in the middle for me. And you'll want to have at least that organized with extra papers in it, whether it's, worksheets or coloring sheets or just
Mhm.
activities that a
And it's
teacher can
always better
do.
to have more so that they're not trying to fill their time, but they've got more than enough to fill their time.
Yes. And make sure you include your pull-out schedule if your students get pulled out for anything and any important people or numbers in there. Again, even if you're not planning on taking a day off, you might need it and not expect it. So as you're organizing, get that stuff taken care of as well, and it'll pay off.
Mm-hmm. This is also kind of the time of the year that schools are getting organized for the next school year. So that includes if you're doing any curriculum changes. Like last year, I helped my school pick out a new science curriculum. This year's social studies is up. So most schools kind of have a rotation of checking not necessarily that it's going to change, but checking that maybe what you have is the best, or is there something else out there that seems like a better option? Um, if you're on that committee, it helps to make sure you're checking in with other people. Like, what do you have? What do you think of it? Because even looking at the samples that are sent to you, they can be really overwhelming. It can be a lot, and you're not actually implementing it into a classroom. So getting an idea of if someone's really using that can be helpful. And if you're not, you might need to be able to be ready to give your opinion on the final curriculums that are kind of presented as the options. I would encourage you, if they're giving you that opportunity, to really share your thoughts when you've looked at it. Don't just kind of show up to that meeting and be like, whatever, I'll go with what everybody else, because you might get stuck teaching something you really don't like, which you might have been able to prevent had you paged through a book. Just be honest, being a team player. Um, if it's not something you would use, say it because you're trying to find something that will support everybody.
Exactly. And you're capable, even if it's your first year teaching or you're still new to teaching, you know a lot. Even if you don't feel like you do in comparison to others. And you're on that committee for a reason, and they need to hear your voice. Every voice is valuable. And
Mhm.
I know you mentioned there's a lot of curriculum resources out there. There are. When we were doing science last year, I had a whole plastic tub filled with resources that I got to page through. And then when I was down to two, I showed my team the resources and I actually taught lessons from both to see how the students would respond and to see how the online component actually worked while I was teaching. And that was really helpful to me to know
Mhm.
which one was more user friendly when I was actually teaching it and which ones the students responded better to.
And I
I've
mean, you're
also,
going into that the expert of your grade, right? So
mm,
the third grade teacher isn't coming in looking at that curriculum wondering about how it's going to fit in a first grade classroom or a fifth grade classroom. So you really have to come in and kind of say your piece because you're the voice for your students in your grade.
mhm. And if you are on that committee, I recommend going to edreports.org and seeing what other teachers have said about that curriculum. Um, Still do your own research, but that's just one component of doing research to see what other people have graded it as. And I've also been able to find on Facebook groups for different curriculum resources. And on there, teachers are, either sharing a lot of resources or sharing success stories, or they're complaining a lot. So I like paging through those Facebook groups and kind of gauging how teachers' attitudes are about each. And then, of course, still looking at the resource itself and seeing what I would like and what my students would like and what goes along with the ideals of the school as well.
And it's kind of the time of year too. I feel like on the hashtag Luth Ed Facebook page, you start seeing lots of posts from different teachers being like, "We're looking for a new whatever curriculum. What are your thoughts on this one?" So you could make your own post, or honestly, you could probably search up whatever curriculum you're looking at and see a whole bunch of answers and responses to that, and be able to gauge it that way too.
Yes, definitely. And then I know we adopted the CPH curriculum just a couple years ago, and as I am looking at future curriculums, I like to see, is there anything from CPH or other resources that align with what we're learning in the other subjects as well. And so I like to plug that into curriculum track, whether it's a Bible verse that goes with it or a core part of the catechism that goes with what we're learning in those other classes. Um, Curriculum Track is an online uh, system used to track the curriculum resources that you're
Mhm.
using and when you're using them throughout the year. And so on that is where I can plug in the connections to religion and then on my own lesson plans as well. And it's really fun to be able to do that. And I like being intentional about looking up connections ahead of time. Yes, some will be like spur of the moment, but as you're planning, it's really helpful because then you're more likely to bridge that religion
Mhm.
connection and show Christ in all things.
Mhm. And a note on curriculum track. A lot of your schools probably use it for accreditation. So if you have not seen your curriculum track, it's possible there's one already started for your grade from whoever taught before you, or if you're teaching as a team, that there's something for you to go off of. But I would highly suggest you don't wait to do your curriculum track all up until an accreditation year. It is a lot, even if you're just tweaking something. So if you're starting from scratch, or maybe you're changing a lot from whoever was there before or from your team, I would really encourage you to maybe take a chunk here or there and start working through it. And it will create some of those intentional planning moments like Esther's talking about, because you're looking at the whole of what you're teaching in a year. But side note about accreditation, if you've got that coming up.
Yeah, which my school does. So yeah, we're going to go through it next year, which means right now we're planning for it.
Yep.
And we're on each teacher is on a different committee uh, to help plan for it and get the documentation needed.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
With curriculum two and that CPH new religion curriculum from a couple years ago, Esther mentioned, um, I know that in first grade with how we do it, we would not hit Jesus's birth and death and resurrection at the right times of the school year, just following an order of our stories. Maybe you are. But if you're not, it's important to kind of just look ahead. It helps the kids kind of connect to the church calendar if what you're doing in religion class reflects that. So since we have Lent and Easter all coming up, just making sure, do I have time to kind of squeeze that all in, whether that's having Jesus die and rise before you go on Easter break, or die before Easter break and you can have him rise afterwards. But having it somewhere in that same time reference is helpful for kids.
mhm. And it does change every year, right?
Mm-hmm.
The date of Easter changes every year. This year, it's different than last year. Thankfully, I get to say when our religion lessons are for my team, and so I've been able to plan it to where we hit those things. We hit Christmas right before Christmas, and we'll hit Jesus's death and resurrection before we hit it in the church year. And it's really nice to be able to explain the church year to the kids. And when we go over to chapel, we can also talk about what we see, what's changed up front. Is there green now or purple or white?
Mm-hmm.
And so we talk about what the colors mean, and that's not stated directly in all of the CPH curriculums because that's not the purpose of it. But I would recommend looking up the church year and teaching that to your kids as well. And then if you aren't able to align your religion lessons with those big important festival days of the church year, that's fine. But maybe bridge the gap by reading a Bible storybook, or from the Bible itself and say, all right, we're going to skip these sections, but mention what they are, and then say the story that you're going to hear in church.
Yeah, and it can be easy too to just wrap that into your devotion time if you
Hmm.
don't want to move around your necessarily religion time. You could easily hit these things at a different part of your day or even a smaller section of your day.
Hmm. And in anticipating Lent, there are a few things that you'll want to consider doing. We have a treasure box, and we talk about alleluias and sing many of the Alleluia songs, but then we write the Alleluias on paper and we put them in the treasure box and we put them away until Easter because it's one of those celebrations that is really big on Easter that we want to hold off until then because during Lent, you're in a more somber mood because you're thinking about why you deserved what Christ did for us. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and then also talk to your school about if you're doing ashes on Ash Wednesday. Do the kids do ashes? Do you have to have permission for that? Do all the kids do it? Do just teachers do ashes? Does anybody? So make sure you ask about that so that you know how to communicate with parents. If your school does opt to do ashes on the students' foreheads, please communicate with parents what that means beforehand and communicate that with your students about what it means beforehand as well in the language that you know the students can understand.
Mm-hmm. And I know for us, we typically offer ashes to everybody. So an email is sent out to parents explaining it's going to be offered to them. It is up to you and your child whether or not they say yes or no when they walk by. So for us, I know our office communicates that, so that could be a question as well. Is that something I need to do, or is that done for you?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Also with just Lent season in general, I know that our chapels all reflect whatever the Lent service is going to be that evening. So we have chapel on Wednesday, so they just kind of run it twice. Um, just to be aware of that if that's going to take up more of your morning time possibly than what your usual chapel does. So maybe a question if you're not sure how those Lent chapels are going to go. Is it just Ash Wednesday or is it going to be that whole season of Lent?
Yeah, that's a very good thing to ask about because the timing of them can be quite different as well, especially
Yes.
as Wednesday services are typically longer than your other chapel services.
Mm-hmm.
So ask about it so that you
Yep.
can get your children where they need to be at the right time. And
Yep.
sometimes you might need to go early to do the ashes. Other times they'll say start at the same time. Um, so ask all of those questions. Um, and now thinking about assessments. We are in the third quarter right now. So I want you to start thinking about what you need to do before spring break or Easter break and where they land. So, are there certain assessments that you need to do before either of these breaks or before the end of the quarter? And I want you to, or I recommend planning ahead to see where these assessments all fit so that the students aren't too stressed that last week before spring break or Easter break because you'll want them to be focused, but they're going to be so excited. Um, and you want to make sure that you give yourself some time to grade things so that you can also enjoy those breaks as well. So maybe choose some projects instead of tests. Maybe there's some things that you can skip or maybe introduce instead of master. So consider all of the options when you're planning so that they're not doing 6 tests before spring break. Especially because a lot of people also take off early before spring break. And
Mhm.
um, you can't really put that on a report card if they're not there to take it.
Yeah. I would definitely encourage to try to do some of it before those breaks, just because it's when the kids are going to be the most focused, but also finding a way to somewhat spread those out. Not that they're testing all day, because that's not going to have their focus either. Um, so it's kind of finding the right way within your own schedule to kind of get in the things that you need so that you have time to get all of your report card stuff together, but also have accurate scores representing those students. Kids do leave early, so if you're planning to kind of do them up until break, just make sure you have some times after, or maybe even try to assess those kids before they leave so that you're not waiting on them or back when they get back, whichever one works better for you.
Mhm. Some other things to think about this time of year are if you haven't been observed yet, and that's something that your administration does for you, then see if you can try to get that scheduled because it's your kids are probably going to be better right now um, than after spring break. And you'll want to take advantage of that. And you don't want it hanging over your head. I have let scheduling my observations hang over my head, and I have done it way later than I should have. And this year, I'm hopefully not going to do that again. I will be doing it earlier than I ever have, probably, which is good. And then it'll be done, and I won't have to worry about it anymore. Also, think about scheduling conferences. Some schools have third quarter conferences on their schedule, others don't. But if you think that an intervention needs to happen before the student is ready for the next grade, then you need to have those conversations with parents, and in-person conversations are going to be the best when you're talking about promoting to the next level. And if evaluations need to happen, then you can start documenting now if you haven't yet. And again, things can be documented before the beginning of the next school year because you're going to want to set up your coworker, the next teacher, the best that you can set them up for. So have hard conversations now, so that the students can get the right help that they need as
And a
soon.
lot of those assessments or evaluations can take a while to get worked out all the way. So, by allowing families to know that now, they kind of have the last part of the school year and all of summer to hopefully get those ducks in a row so that they're ready for success that next year instead of pushing it off until the beginning of next year, whereas now they're not going to have any of that help that they may have had until further into the school year.
Mhm. And when you're having those conversations with parents, be careful of the language that you use because you cannot tell them that their child has a diagnosis because you are not a doctor and that is not your job to tell them that. Um, However, you can definitely tell them the things that you do in the classroom and that the student is doing in the classroom. And so tell the parents, what you do that the student reacts well to so that they know also how to prepare the next teacher. They can say, oh, I had feedback that when the teacher did this, it was really helpful.
Mm-hmm.
Other things to think about right now are um, just hot topics. Like in February, it's Black History Month. It's Dental Health Month. It's Random Acts of Kindness Week. So ask your coworkers or your administration if you're expected to do anything for any of these or put up anything in the hallway for them. Because if you're expected to, you better know about it so you have time. You have just about a week left of February. And then March is Women's History Month and St. Patrick's Day. So again, if it's in the school culture to do anything with these, ask about it so that you're not the only one not doing something
Hmm.
as well.
Yeah. And then we mentioned we're kind of looking forward to spring break as kind of the next big thing. Just making sure that your expectations are set for what you want your spring break to be, and also thinking about the expectations that your families probably have for theirs. It's not a time to assign that one really big at-home project or, paper or whatever that is. They need a break from each other, from school, from maybe you, and you need a break from them, maybe from school. So really taking that as some time to actually have a break and refill your bucket and allow their buckets to be refilled so that you can come back strong for the rest of your school year.
Yes, yes. Encourage the family time and the break because we all need it. And um, family time should be a priority, especially during that time.
Definitely.
Yes. And as you're thinking about all these things that we mentioned, definitely prioritize your own devotional life right now and your own family time and friend time. Because if you haven't prioritized those things yet this school year, it's only going to get harder. So schedule time to talk to your family and friends so that you don't feel alone in what you're doing because you do have a good support system. Even if you don't know it, there are people who are praying for you because you're a Lutheran educator. So be
Very,
encouraged and take the breaks that you need.
definitely.
So now let's see if we have any questions. I don't see any questions yet, but as always, feel free to post a comment or a question when you see the recording of this, and we can always answer it later.
Definitely, for sure.
Well, thank you all for joining us. Um, since I don't see any questions, I think we can go ahead and end in prayer. Um, would you like to, or do you want me to?
Yeah, I can do it.
Okay.
Let's fold our hands. Dear God, thank you so much for this time to discuss the events that are happening in February and this part of the school year. We thank you for days like Valentine's Day, where we're able to share about your love to our students, and they get some time to um, honor their relationships with one another as well. We are thankful for the love of you and your son that you sent to die on the cross for us and rise again, especially as we look forward to Easter in just a few weeks. All this we pray in your name. Amen.
Amen. I'm glad you mentioned Valentine's Day again in the prayer. It reminded me that a lot of my fourth graders had never heard of Saint Valentine this year until we
Oh my
learned about it.
goodness.
So it was really cool. It was really cool.
That's neat.
Yeah. Anyway, thank you all for joining us and watching this. We hope that it helps you a little bit, at least in your teaching, whatever year you might be. And we ask that God continue to bless you as you try to share Jesus with every single one of these students and families. So take care, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Hey, thanks for doing that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
of course.
So we had 222 viewers on TikTok.
Oh my gosh.
Oh
I
my
know.
goodness.
Does it show how long they see it? Do they only watch it for like a swipe and then move on?
And then it's done.
We get about 100 that stay on for longer than 10 minutes. So
Wow,
Oh,
yeah.
that's
So it's
awesome.
that's cool.
always good seeing that.
Yeah,
Um, TikTok's weirdly prioritizing live streams right now.
I didn't even know TikTok did live streams.
So it used to be you had to be like in their creator program.
Yeah, it used to just be certain people could do it.
Yeah. So
Gotcha. Yeah, I'm a
they're trying to
military
prove
house, so we're not even allowed it.
why they're necessary.
Well, that's great that 100 people were watching for no
Yeah, that's
reason.
cool.
Yeah,
You never know who you're gonna reach.
exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and then the live streams always do really well. It's just kind of tough trying to hit the entire US. So
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
right. Because it's
then it's
a
actually
big,
California we get to pick up a lot of our viewers from afterwards.
oh,
That would
afterward?
make sense because it's
Yeah.
3 o'clock
Yep.
there when we do it, right? 3 o'clock?
Two
No,
o'clock
Mhm.
two
right now.
o'clock. Two
2 o'clock.
Yeah.
o'clock
So you're
You're
saying
still
they
messed
watch
up
it
from 3.
after.
after.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yep. Cool.
That's cool. So you can see like where people are from.
Yeah, so we weirdly have a presence in Brazil, Germany, and the Philippines.
Okay.
So,
Nice.
So
yeah.
all this talk about Lutheran education,
Oh,
it
they
just
love
makes
it.
them desire it, right?
There we go.
Oh,
That's
perfect.
funny.
That's cool.
Oh, all right.
Well, thanks for sharing. There must be a lot of bored people in those places. I wonder if it's before bedtime there.
So we have a few, like we're in partnership with those places too.
Oh,
Like
right.
Mm,
Brazil, there's actually a lot of Lutheran schools there.
Yeah. And a
So,
seminary. So,
yeah,
yeah, that makes sense.
never know who you're hitting.
Germany,
yeah.
there's a lot of Lutherans there.
Oh,
Well, cool. Thanks for
That's cool.
sharing, Well.
yeah. Well, you all have a great night.
You
You
too.
too.
I hope your baby feels better soon.
Yeah.
Oh, thanks.
Yes.
All right, bye.
All right, take care.
Bye.